Last week, the LA Times came out with an editorial that depicted white men as enemy number one in America. They implied that we are angry and that we are a great threat to the powers that be. In quoting them, they said there are increasingly frightening numbers, cells of angry men in the United States preparing for combat with the U.S. government. They are usually heavily armed, blinded by an intractable hatred, often motivated by religious zeal. There they go again, trying to directly attack Christianity. They'd never go after Muslims like that, but they like to get their little digs in, because most of the people who work in media have a deep-seated hatred for Christianity. Fortunately, fewer and fewer people are actually reading these rag sheets, and they'll soon probably be out of business completely, and justifiably so. This editorial is a blatant example of why mainstream media is becoming a failure, while the alternative media over the internet is growing by leaps and bounds. Their description of people who are patriots as heavily armed and blinded by intractable hatred is a perfect description of the kind of people we have working for the government. The kind of people who would kick down doors in the middle of the night and terrorize families over nonviolent offenses. Or perhaps it's a perfect description of DHS that has purchased more than 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition and 2,700 tanks to wage war against the American people. But the media would never describe their own government as a threat. They would never describe them as being blinded by intractable hatred. But who are the ones who have the real hatred? They say we have a religious zeal, and many people who oppose the government do have faith in God. They do identify themselves as Christians. And I think, fittingly, the government should identify themselves as Satanists, because when you get right down to it, their actions perfectly fits the description of antichrists. A government that wants to fill America's skies with robot planes and drones that can and will be used as weapons against the people, especially people who believe in the Constitution. They love to go after the whites. They're an easy target because most white people have been brainwashed to hate their own race. Many people who vote for, say, Obama, who clearly has animosity towards white people, are white. You see, you'll find that in no other race, because mass media and mass brainwashing has targeted people who believe in owning guns, people who identify themselves as Christians, people who are pro-life. They have been vilified in the media for 50 years, and it has been going on and on and on, and Hollywood has been used to relay this message as well. The combination of all these things have caused this avalanche of self-doubt and self-hatred among many white people. But you will never hear the mainstream media go after their own government the way they go after the patriots. Never. They didn't do it 20 years ago when they massacred 80 innocent people in Waco, Texas. They don't go after them for that. As a matter of fact, they'll go out of their way to lie for them and defend their terrorist actions. Ever since the election, we have seen how Obama has been going after the guns. Most people who are aware of what's really happening know that the election last November was a complete farce. There's just no way Obama won that election legitimately, and many people sense that. And there's a growing anger now that they see what Obama really wants to do, that he wants to make America a North Korea or a China dictatorship, where there is no free speech, where there is no right to bear arms, absolute power. I will issue executive orders, he says, completely unconstitutional. The media doesn't even touch it. There are many blacks and Spanish who see the same things we do. Ultimately, when it comes right down to it, they do want liberty, they do want freedom, and they don't want the government imposing their tyranny on their lives. And that's what they're afraid of, is if the blacks and the Spanish wake up and see what is really happening and oppose it, they've lost the battle. They have to keep this up. They have to keep presenting only whites as people who oppose Obama and his dictatorial agenda. America has gone downhill remarkably since Obama took power. The number of people on food stamps has skyrocketed. The wages have gone down. At one time, America was a country where pretty much anybody could live well. They could live a comfortable middle-class life. They could afford a decent house to live in. They could pay the taxes because the taxes weren't too high. That's all gone now. So, what will they do? They will try to take away your ability to fight back. They're afraid of riots. They're afraid of revolution. They're afraid of people who have had enough of this kind of government ruling against what's best for America. So they're not only going to try to take away your guns and your free speech, but also, when the food stamps run out, when the subsidized housing stops, when the welfare stops, what are all these people who have become dependent on government going to do? They're going to round people up. All these people are going to need shelter. They're going to need food. And they'll go running to Big Brother for help. They're going to go running right into the camps, right into Auschwitz. They will be helpless. They will be defenseless. That's what's coming. Why do you think so many people have become dependent on food stamps since Obama took office? Obviously, he's getting them ready for something. Dependency, and once they're dependent, then you pull away what you've been giving them. They will come crawling to you and do anything you ask them to do, just to survive one more day. God doesn't want you to live as a slave. He doesn't want you to be dependent on tyrants. He wants you to resist them. He wants you to expose them. He wants you to stand up to them. And in the process, you can help other people avoid what is coming too.